All right, welcome everybody. We'll call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, July 17th, 2023. Welcome everybody. Roll call, please, Marie.
Michael.
Here.
Selsky. Here. Weber.
Here.
Lansky. Here. Kavami. Sandy.
Here.
And Lee.
Here.
Thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.3, mayor's announcements. I only really have a few comments I want to make tonight. Just in remembrance of Officer Jake Willeen down in Fargo, for those of you that I think most of us have found out about it by now. So we'll offer a moment of silence, and I'm going to say a few words for the slain officer who was murdered responding to a minor traffic accident where he was ambushed by a gunman unrelated to the accident. So we'll start with that. We just have a moment of silence for Officer Willeen. Thank you. Thoughts and prayers. I think thoughts and prayers, but thoughts and prayers don't bring somebody back to life. I think we give our thoughts and prayers. We offer that because that's what we have to give, and you give what you've got. The city of Grand Forks has reached out and offered the Fargo Police Department any support that they need, whether it's patrols, helping out with their patrols, processional logistics, or grief counseling. I reached out to Mayor Mahoney within an hour of the shooting, and I know and offered my support, and I know Chief Nelson reached out to his counterpart shortly thereafter, or about the same time, offering his support to Chief Zabolski. But what else can we as a community do? I think in our community, there is something we can do. This is going to bring back a lot of the pain that was felt here just 3 years ago. I think when you attack someone in the police family, you attack the whole family. I know our officers feel that way. So I would just ask this, anybody that's listening or that's here today, you go out, see an officer on patrol, see him dropping his kid off, him or her dropping their kids off at school, give them a smile, give them a wave, tell them thank you. See them mowing their lawn, you see them out at the grocery store, shake their hand. Maybe give them a hug. What have you got to lose? That's something we can do, something we can do every day. So I guess that's what I'd ask today, and I'll open it up if anybody else in council wants to make any comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, obviously Officer Willeen lost his life, but I'd also offer our prayers to Officer Dotis and Officer Haas, and say thank you to Officer Robinson, who probably saved countless lives with his ability to jump into action and neutralize the threat. Obviously, it's a busy part of Fargo, and he did what he was trained to do and neutralize that threat, saving who knows how many lives. So I just would offer my support any way that they need it, and thank them for their service.
All right, we've got to continue our meeting. I know in Fargo they're going to have a much harder time going on with regular business, but that's what these jobs require. That's all I've got for mayor's announcements. Moving on to item 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. There are none this evening. 3, public hearings and second reading of ordinances.
3.1, public hearing on second reading of ordinance to amend the zoning map Memorial Village Community Development.
Mayor, if I could,
Yeah, please, Mr. Kamani.
prior to discussion here, I just would like to maybe seek guidance from Mr. Brooks or the city attorney. The firm that I have ownership in is not involved at all in the development of the mixed-use facility. However, we were retained for services by the university for design of the softball field. It's my understanding that the softball field doesn't require any rezoning, and whether the softball field happens or not. So I guess I would like to seek either, the city attorney's guidance on whether or not I should be, involved in discussion and voting on this, and then potentially asking for you guys to weigh in based on that.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks, maybe probably better for Mr. Costa to respond to that.
I'm just referring back to a memo I did almost 3 years ago about conflicts of interest that I shared with the city council at the time. And the conflict of interest arises for council members when there is what's called a direct and substantial pecuniary interest. That's one where there's some sort of financial stake in the outcome, or you'll gain or not lose from your decision. Is really what the direct and substantial pecuniary interest is. And I can appreciate the fact that Mr. Kavami has disclosed his conflict or potential conflict with respect to the softball diamond. As I understand, this PUD is more directed at the Memorial Village building. That needs the rezoning. The softball field is not directed necessarily, although it's encompassed within the same platted area. But the softball field can be constructed under the current zoning, as I understand it. Maybe Mr. Brooks can answer that question. So that's one of the issues that not necessarily seeing the direct pecuniary interest, because of the decision tonight is more directed at the building, where Mr. Kavami doesn't have that interest. Second is that this is resolvable. I know that we make light of what I asked the council to do with respect to somebody raising the conflict of interest. You actually have a duty to vote on matters. It's the way the several of the Attorney General's opinions in North Dakota Supreme Court decisions. When you're on a governing body like this, you have an obligation to vote. You can't just abstain because you feel uncomfortable about the particular topic. And therefore, there's a process that's set up that if a party feels that they've got this conflict of interest, the other non-conflicted members of the governing body can vote to allow that person to vote notwithstanding the disclosed conflict. So to the extent that, one, I'm not don't believe, given with the softball field and what the zoning request is, I'm not seeing necessarily there's a direct pecuniary interest. However, if you wanted to vote to allow Mr. Kavami to participate in that vote, the rest of the governing body could certainly do that. And you make a motion to allow him to vote, given the potential conflict that he's disclosed. And then he would be able to fully participate in the vote.
All right, Mr. Weber.
If I may, I appreciate Mr. Kavami's disclosure and his concern about these matters, but I also respect and trust his ability to put such potential matters aside and to act in the best interest of the city. As such, I would move that we allow him to vote tonight. If in light of his bringing up this matter, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Weigel. All right, any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor, allowing Mr. Kavami to participate in the vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion is granted with Osowski and Weigel dissenting. All right. We will be voting, Mr. Kavami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm just here to kind of provide you a little bit of background on where this project has been. I think this is one of many meetings that we've discussed this item. We actually have the rezoning before you is this item further on the agenda. We do have the plats as well. but this will be part of a public hearing for the rezoning. Just to provide you some additional background, the Planning Commission has met, gave preliminary approval in June. It gave final approval last Wednesday. In addition, we have had a neighborhood meeting as well with the University Park neighborhood individually as well. I think some of the questions have been really boiled down to, I think the one that we heard many times over was really parking, what the effect was going to be on the neighborhood. And I think that was related specifically to what the displacement would be. Currently, there are some folks parking on the kind of the north end of what's there. The parking lot itself has not been, the university's been ready potentially to redevelop this. And if you've been in that parking lot, it's not in the best condition, really with the thought that they were going to eventually redevelop this. So that was, I think, purposeful on their account, because they weren't going to put money into something that was going to be done away with in a short order. So the university has, as I understand it, and I think facilities folks are here too from UND, but they do have some options, and they've, I believe, sent out some paperwork as to where the thought is for those folks to park. There is a parking ramp that has available spaces. The Greek community students could certainly park in there. I think it's about $400 a month permit to park in the ramp. That's probably one of the better stalls to park. In addition, there is a spot on the corner of 25th and University. There's a additional parking that's going to be built there. And then lastly, there's some Columbia Hall, which is the old St. Mike's Hospital on Columbia Road on the west side, has some sections that they'll be specifically for Greek as well. So with that, I'm hoping to at least answer some of those questions. And if you have any further, we can certainly, I can certainly try to answer those as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions for Mr. Brooks here? Why don't I open the public hearing first, and if you want to hang out, we'll answer some questions. So I'm going to open the public hearing for item 3.1. Anybody here that wishes to speak on item 3.1?
Mayor, we have one person, Jennifer Carlin.
Ms. Carlin, please.
Hello. Thank you very much for listening. And my name is Jennifer Tarlin, and I live in the neighborhoods immediately surrounding the Memorial Villages. I did attend the meeting of Planning and Zoning last week. And based on the information that I heard at that time, stand corrected, I still don't think that the project includes adequate and realistic spaces for parking. The plan that proposed assumes that street parking on University Avenue, as well as parking in adjacent residential areas, will be used. And I'm concerned that that will lead to both traffic and parking problems in the area, and also will negatively affect my where I live, a few blocks in, as more and more cars use those residential areas to park. Just as a quick example of where I found inaccuracy in the data that was presented last week, it named, I think, 68 spaces available on 4th Avenue North, a block from where I live, where I literally counted with my car. If you squeeze, there may be 20, not counting the fact that people who already live there might actually want to park on their own street. So I'm concerned about the accuracy of the data that was used. Data provided by representatives both from UND and the developer simply didn't seem entirely accurate to me. Sometimes it was misleading, and it failed to take into consideration what I think are UND's plans to bring back to campus students who are currently living outside of Grand Forks and studying online. I think it's like 50 or 60% of the population is here on the ground, but I'm thinking that UND is hoping that some of those students are going to come back and live here. My second point is that the plan does not include a provision for EV charging stations, either in its underground or above ground parking areas. I'm assuming that the city is concerned about clean energy, that that's a priority. And I would like to see a policy about new parking spaces for residential areas that include clean energy parking charging stations, if we want to encourage that and encourage Grand Forks becoming a step closer to a good, smart city. Finally, Memorial Village is one of several recent development projects that will benefit from very generous tax concessions. One of the developers of this project is also a principal in the new Beacon project downtown, where a condominium recently went on the market this week for, I think, $853,000. In the next few weeks, I will be looking for evidence from everybody here that the city has policies that are as generous in their tax concessions and in other ways to low and moderate income residents as they currently are for developers of high-end property. I think that that's really important. There's a long-standing problem with inadequate affordable housing in our city, and I think that projects like this one, without suitable balance, may exacerbate that problem. So that's what I'm looking for, and I will be in touch with you individually to see how each of you are planning to address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Costello. Appreciate it. All right, any other comments on 3.1? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion, and Mr. Brooks, I'm assuming there may be some questions for you, so you want to stand up and open up to council this time. President Sandy.
Mr. Brooks, is the university or the developer looking for any sort of a variance related to the parking numbers of parking stalls? Are they asking us to not follow our city ordinance related to parking as it sits today?
They are not. No, this PUD specifically does address where the parking is going to be at. There's 250 on site, and they also have the available parking ramp stalls, and they are connecting to that. So we do think that those will be popular to most folks that park in as well.
Did you say it's $400 a month to park in the parking lot?
A year for.
Thank you. I thought it was annual.
I apologize if I said a month, but I certainly love to get that revenue as well for our downtown rent, but apologize for that.
Yeah, which I don't know how many people utilize those, the parking ramp on an annual basis, but it is usually quite well utilized, especially in the wintertime. I think it's, in terms of how people like it, they really enjoy parking in the parking ramp.
Yeah, and they'll actually have a connection across.
Excuse me. I think, do you recall 2012 Blue Ribbon Commission on Housing, when we talked about housing related to affordable housing specifically, but housing in general? If my memory serves me correctly, we came to the conclusion that there's a shortage of housing and housing stock at every price point in our community, including at the time rental properties and apartment units, which is why we had such a boom of construction of apartment units. Do you agree with that?
That was my recollection as well. I wouldn't be able to cite everything in there, but I
Certainly,
generally I do recall that.
So although the previous citizen was concerned about us providing some sort of incentives for affordable housing, I would contend that every time we provide an incentive for any housing helps the housing market in general in our community, and certainly therefore helps people at every potential price point. I don't know if there's an easy way to build single family residential housing that will ever fit anyone's definition of affordable in our community. I don't know if it can be done. Everyone's definition of affordable is different. As we know, the cost of building in our community is incredibly expensive from the infrastructure standpoint of what we have to put in order to handle the dramatic shifts in climate between the summer and the winter. So I certainly would be, if there's a developer in our community that's interested in trying to build single family residences that one might consider affordable, I'd be happy to talk about providing some sort of an incentive by the city. I certainly would champion that for them. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, President Sandy. Any other comments, council? Yep, Mr. Dean, please.
Mr. Brooks, I know Mr. Beavers last week, or whatever, I think, talked about a number of other parking proposals or plans they have. Could you identify those as you best recall?
Yes, and he may be here as well, but I do know in terms of some additional parking that they're looking at, it's, if you know where the Fritz Pollard parking is, that kind of that prime parking that they have on the north side of the building. They were going to continue that to the east, into the EERC property. And what they found as well is that the EERC property is fairly underutilized. They think having those pedestrian connections that they're going to even have up to the Fritz Pollard will make that more attractive for those to be used, nights, weekends, those types of things, because that's when the Fritz Pollard gets used and probably most utilized, I think, from outside folks. In addition, there's the lot that was, I think the Red House lot is what I've heard it referred to as, across from University Park. It's the corner of 25th and University. I think it was the old Melvin Peterson lot. That has been purchased by the university. There's about 18 stalls, I recall, that was going to be put on that site as well. Those were a couple of the sites that I know that he was looking at adding additional parking, and not just adding additional parking, but making better connections so that they get used better as well. So having those pedestrian connections, I think, will help overall as well. I think the map too that they tried to produce that showed, I think there was 2,000 stalls. I think that was in trying to answer some of the questions in terms of event parking overall. And so the intent wasn't to have that map show where the individual residences were going to park, but more of, I think that was in trying to answer some of when we have large events, when the track and field indoor Fritz Pollard was going to be used at the same time as the softball field. I think those are the overall, and some of the points made is when we have the school district parking there, are they going to have stalls for them, and would they be charged? That was another question that was asked, and I think answered by the university, is trying to get, not necessarily charge the parents that come in to campus, and that we're sharing in those facilities as well. So.
As I best recall, didn't they talk about even adding new parking on the east side of Fritz Pollard?
Yeah, that's the ERC property.
Yeah,
that's some of the.
That's underutilized now, but I mean there's a lot there that may be underutilized. But wasn't that going to be expanded also?
That's extended. Yep, that's extended parking as well. That was shown on that map as well.
Yeah, so there'll be all of that additional parking.
That's correct. Yes.
Because obviously the parking lot is parking for not just those adjacencies, but it could be for those that also work with other buildings on campus.
Right, correct. And I do think it's important to note that this is going to be a mixed-use building that's going to be in the middle of campus. There isn't going to, not everybody that's going to be utilizing that retail space, they won't be coming in a car. They'll be walking to the facility. So all of the fraternities, sororities, the people that live on campus, they're going to be walking. They're already walking to Memorial Union. They're going to walk over to this facility as well. So there is going to be a tremendous amount of pedestrian activity here. And that's really the point of being on campus, that you park once and then you walk or bike or, whatever it is. This is going to be, there won't be as much coming from outside. This isn't going to, we don't want to have this thing parked the same way as we would something that was out by Target. We want this to be a condensed urban type feel to this, and that's really the intent. That's what's going to make it popular amongst the college students.
All right, any further questions from Mr. Brooks? Move approval. Got a motion approved from President Sandy. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Weigel. Any further comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion would carry, I believe, 6-1. Motion carries with Oselsky dissenting. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
3.2, public hearing and second reading of ordinance to amend chapter 18, land development for various sections is relating to zoning for animals, chapter 11, animals of all aspects relating to licensing and permitting.
Mr. Brooks, again, please.
Yeah, sorry, I started walking away. But in this case, this is an update of pet ordinance. We've been working with some folks with our planning and zoning commission. We had a subcommittee. We really got kind of cleaning up some of our ordinances, and then at the same time, even working into Chapter 11 too was included in terms of some of the cleanup, and we really got great support on this, and willing to stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions for Mr. Brooks on item 3? I'm going to actually do it the same way. I'm going to open up the public hearing for item 3.2. Anyone here to speak on item 3.2? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion and open up to any questions. We have Mr. Brooks. We got a motion to approve from Mr. Weigel, second from Ms. Osowski. Any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
3.3, public hearing and second reading ordinance amending chapter 18, land development folder, Article 8, comprehensive plan, ground East Ground Works, 2050 transportation.
Is that you again, Mr. Brooks, please?
It is, and Stephanie Halford with the MPO is here as well, and I think both of us are here and stand ready to answer any questions that you may have. This received great support as well along the way.
All right, same procedure. I'm going to open the public hearing at this point for item 3.3. Anybody here to speak on item 3.3? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion and open up this comment or
Mr. Brooks, so just for the general public's understanding, the bike paths that we have in our community, the vast majority of the funding for the bike paths comes from federal dollars, correct?
Yeah, I would say the vast majority of them do, correct.
And our desired bike paths versus East Grand Forks' desired bike paths, we fund our portion with our city money, and they fund their portion with their city money. There isn't any folks in Grand Forks that are helping pay for bike paths in East Grand Forks.
Oh, correct.
Correct. So
Other than the federal money, I guess.
yes,
which
the
is all
federal money,
ours,
right?
yeah.
The federal money, but
Yeah.
our local money goes to pay for our local bike paths. If you look at the actual pedestrian and bike path plan, both the city of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks have approximately $24 million in planned bike paths as part of this updated plan. I found it interesting that both of our communities, our community being, 7 times greater, 8 times greater than East Grand Forks, we have this a similar dollar value of total planned bike paths that are going into this plan. Just wanted to confirm if people are concerned about that. The folks in East Grand Forks, they have to pay for their share, and the folks in Grand Forks, we have to pay for our share. My guess is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, City of Grand Forks has been investing a lot more money into bike paths up to today than the city of East Grand Forks, which is why we have such a great bike path infrastructure in our community today.
Yeah, I'd say ours is, we've done very well. The engineering department through the years has done, and city councils have done very well in supporting our system.
I think it's a good plan there. I'm gonna move approval.
All right, we got a motion to approve from President Sandy. I got Ms. Osowski on the second. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, so we'll move on to item 4, citizen comments related to action items. Do you have any comments this evening, Ms. Hallmark? All right, thank you. We'll move on to 5 action items. We've got at least item 5.1, 5.2, and 5.20 that are going to be pulled. If there's any other items that council members want, please let me know at this time. Call for further discussion. All right, we'll be looking for approval on items 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, 5.10, 5.11, 5.12, 5.13, 5.14, 5.15, 5.16, 5.17, 5.18, 5.19, and 5.21. That's quite the mouthful. We have a motion to approve those items. A motion from Vice President Weber and second from Ms. Osowski. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.1, city prosecutor transition.
I think, Mr. Gossett, I think it's exciting news when you got anybody within the city's umbrella that gets called to do a task such as our city prosecutor is going to do. So if you let us know what's happening on that front and then get into the details on how to clean it up.
Sure. Ms. Van Huzen was recently appointed. There was a new judgeship that was approved by the North Dakota Legislature, one in Grand Forks, two in Fargo. So there'll be 5 district judges now in Grand Forks. And Ms. Van Huzen was appointed by the governor to fill that position. As a result, she no longer can serve as city prosecutor. And in my memo, I noted that I can appoint city prosecutors with the consent of the city council. Given the long history of Ms. Van Huzen, no issues obviously with her serving in that capacity outside of an office, but now that she's moving on, and my responsibility for assistant city attorneys, they thought it would be appropriate to bring that within my office. I expect my partner Joe Quinn will be overseeing most of this work. He does quite a bit of criminal defense work through criminal defense contracts that he has. Also, I've got an associate that's already in our office that will be doing some of the work. And we've already reached out to Ms. Van Huzen about the transition. We're planning on, didn't want to be presumptuous, but planning on doing kind of a job shadow with her office to watch her procedures and then reverse the roles and she'll shadow us as we're doing the work. We're targeting middle of August to have this transition completed. So with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I'll move approval.
Got a motion to approve. We got a second. Then open up. We got a second from Mr. Weigel. And open up to any further comments. Mr. Weigel.
I would just say that having that conversation with you, Mr. Costa, early, I appreciate it. Christy is a wonderful prosecutor. She's very highly regarded throughout the state, especially when it comes to DUI and traffic safety. And so she's done great work for our community, and I don't see anybody more deserving of a judgeship than her. So excited to see what the future holds.
All right, so we got a motion and a second.
As a classmate of mine, she's got many, many years of good hard work on the bench. Many, many years.
Thank you for that. We won't age either of you, but any further comments on item 5.1? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The same sign. That motion carries unanimously.
5.2, adopt resolution authorizing the issuance of 567,000 wastewater reserve funding bonds in 2020.
Thank you.
This relates to the sanitary lift station number 49 and the associated force main in the Highway 81 area. In September, the council gave authority to the staff to apply for the funding, and in November, the Public Finance Authority approved the funding. So tonight, we're asking for approval to actually issue the 2023 wastewater revenue bonds in the amount of $5,607,000 to the state water fund. Questions?
Any questions from council? Move approval. Got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? A second from Ms. Osowski. Motion from Mr. Wyden, second from Ms. Osowski. President Sanders,
I have
please.
a question. Mr. Stern, if we sell these bonds, is there a penalty for calling them early or refinancing them, knowing what the interest rates are these days?
There's usually a call provision after 10 years.
Okay.
We
So,
can't help for it.
okey doke. See what happens in 10 years.
All right, any further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to 5.20. Mr. Chair.
Introduce ordinance for approval of amendment to chapter 18 by the zoning code to allow for home operations to occur in accessory buildings.
Thank you. And I know Mr. Brooks will be coming. I know Mr. Suss got a couple of questions. So if you want to step up to the mic.
Thank you.
Please. You want to maybe give us a rundown exactly what this is doing, and then
Sure.
push through the questions.
So our home occupation ordinance, we had a request. Currently, we do not allow home occupations to occur in an accessory dwelling. So that would be any attached, detached garage. And so the request that we had before us was, hey, how can that be? Google got started in the garage. Why are we not allowing that to occur? His particular request, he's now brewing beer in his basement. He's looking to brew that in his detached garage. And it would be required him to go through public health and all those other requirements. But today he could do that in his basement, and he's saying, oh, why can't I do that in the garage? So just like Google got started in his garage, he was looking to do the same thing. So I think in the end, he probably be able to produce a couple kegs is what a small operation like that could do, be loaded out by pickup. The one thing that our ordinance still requires, we still have noise, traffic, all of those things still can't be done in excess of what would normally be allowed in a single family neighborhood. So those are still the restraints, but the one specific thing that we didn't allow is for that to occur in an accessory dwelling or garage in this case.
So are you just talking about businesses, or can you live in your garage then?
That would be a building code issue. You still have the same requirements. So if somebody was looking to move their garage into living quarters, there's building code requirements that would go through, and they would be required to get that up to building code to have that be living requirements.
Thank you.
Hope that helps. Yes.
All right, thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Brooks? I think it's great that someone came forward and actually, ahead of time. I'm sure there's probably some beer being brewed in garages as we speak that aren't aware of this.
There might be even some other uses that are going on in garage. There might be some other businesses too that are operating.
It's important to understand that occupations does not mean occupying it as a living quarters, but it means for good matters of business. Okay. Got a motion approved from Mr. Ostowski and a second from Mr. Weber. Taking that as your nod. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 6, information items. Thank you.
6.2, statement of changes in cash balances.
We'll receive the file. We will move on to 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, vendor list as presented.
Got a motion to approve the vendors list from President Sandy and a second from Mr. Weigel. Seeing no further comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. On item 8, citizen comments, general. We'll move on to 9. Mr. Phelan, city administrator comments, please.
Just we'll give you a heads up on a few meetings. Next week's committee of the whole will have the mayor's budget in front of you. So we presented some information at the last call, general parameters, seller cap. So we intend to have the budget books printed for you, and then also have a presentation that will not only include the general fund but all funds. So you'll see those all next week, Monday on the 24th. And then after that work session, that will move to the city council meeting of August 7th for preliminary review and approval. And then there'll be quite a time span between August 7th and September 18th when there'll be the second reading and final approval of the budget as we move forward. So I have had some reach out, a lot of questions on the budget and the salary plan that we certainly are willing to set up individual meetings, but you should have most of the information by next week, Monday, to review, and then we'll give you a summary on Monday next. So that's going to come fast and furious. The other thing that's going to come your way, I think, in August, September, is that we are working on that quality of life capital improvements, the courts, turf, aquatics. And so we've been having our local firms, both construction management and architectural, take a look at those estimates. So I would anticipate by the end of the week that we will have a consolidated kind of third-party review of those capital estimates. The Park District is moving forward with on stakeholders with the various rates, and I've been assured the various rates that we would charge people to use the facilities are regionally competitive to see if they're still in on those facilities even with increased rates. We're also following up with our partners in the Park District, School District, and UND regarding some of these same plans. So I would anticipate having that plan in front of you again in August as an update. And as we have this training today at the Alaris Center, we want you to consider that through August and into September with a potential vote. If things feel right and are right, we'll move it forward to the voters. So that's our time frame in that particular way. Also, the other thing that's really becoming major and historic are the two infrastructure projects, the great separation of 42nd and Demers. I would anticipate in August that will be in front of you at a COW and then council to select a concept regarding that project. And then also the 47th Avenue interchange, we intend at a similar meeting or at the same meeting in August to have you pick a concept on that grade separation you did approve. I should say interstate interchange, you did approve moving forward with design now, but we're going to ask you to approve a concept on that. So a couple of historic decisions to be made that hopefully will get us to construction here over the next several years, which is exciting. So all that's going to come to you in August, September. So I anticipate, along with the budget, that we're going to have a lot of decisions that we're going to ask you to make. So thank you for all you do, and just let me know if you have any questions that we follow up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Move on to 10, Mayor and council member comments. Any comments this evening, Mr. Weigel?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Osowski. Any comments? All right, Ms. Lunsky. Mr. Kavami, are you with us in the comments this evening?
Yep. No, thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Dean.
No, thank you.
This is going well. Vice President Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, President Sandy. Thanks, Mayor. Wow, that's great. Now here I have two comments. I'm gonna have to break this. Just wanted to give a thank you to Santa Graduleski. We hosted her paintings over at the Empire as part of the Public Arts Commission Mayor's Choice Award last Thursday. It was a great event. And then I met with I guess you'd call it a local group of cricketers. So there's going to be a community cricket match coming up on July 29th over at Richard West Park. I will be participating in sort of kicking that off. I have no clue how to play the game, but they've told me I just stand there and swing a paddle. So see how that works out. You get a chance, get out there on July 29th. It'll be going on from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and just a great exposure for the community of a sport we don't play too often, I imagine. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. We got a motion from Mr. Osowski, second from Mr. Weigel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.